Hello, my name is Margie. I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint for you. All right. I decided to do my presentation on narrative therapy. I'm going to go ahead and start my timer for myself so I don't run too long. Um, and I chose narrative therapy. I chose this modality because I was inspired by the collaborative and strengths-based approach. I started my career as a peer support specialist, so I think there's something really special about telling your story and kind of highlighting things that you've gone through as your strengths, and that retelling is very healing. And I really appreciate that process. I also appreciate centering the client and collaborating on a path that works for them. This aligns with one of my favorite techniques that I was using in therapy without realizing it was narrative therapy, but it's basically just using the tree of life exercise, which helps to explore connections, resiliency, and you end up talking about values, culture, family, all of these things by using that exercise. Narrative therapy is very strengths-based. It highlights resilience, possibilities through reauthoring. Cultural identity is supported, and it separates the problem from the person. And I love that because it reduces shame. The history of narrative therapy, it was developed in the 80s by Australian social worker Michael White and David Epstein. This method of therapy separates, again, the problem from the person. There can be a strengths-based lens in this approach when the clinician works alongside the client to see the positive aspects of their stories. The core is the understanding that it is helpful to heal through storytelling and reauthoring. Some of the influences I found were social constructivism. This considers social interactions and cultural context. You know, we don't live in a vacuum. There's lots of things influencing us. And also post-structuralism. I saw that in there as well. It's a 60s and 70s French philosophical movement that rejects fixed meanings. And I think that plays into kind of like reauthoring your story and that lots of people have different interpretations could have many interpretations of one situation. And again, person-centered. I love person-centered. People are experts, not the therapist. We are, of course, there to facilitate them on their deeper understanding in their journey. Family functioning and change is really seen because it's a collaborative storytelling. So, what happened, how it felt, and what is the meaning? Um, Something that you can practice with families in a session would be listening to the story of each family member without judgment. Reflecting both on the individual feelings and how others might have felt helps to increase empathy. You can negotiate shared perspectives, which, you know, finding those shared meanings is part of that process. Storytelling as a family increases co-regulation. I really love that. And so families are sharing memories together that can be happy memories as well, and learning together. It increases agility, so the importance in recognizing alternative experiences or alternative thoughts of your own. Here are some key concepts and foundations of narrative therapy: storytelling, so making meaning making, multiple truths, experiences. What is your version of the story? Externalization, placing the problem outside of yourself. Instead of saying, I'm lazy, you could say the procrastinator is back. Deconstruction, helping the client map out where their identities came from. So by creating a visual map, you can help a client maybe see different perspectives or put things together they hadn't thought of before. Reauthoring. This is really good at identifying different ways that you can look at your story and maybe a new future and hope. Reflection and validation. So it's really great in family sessions, as I talked about in the previous slide. There's a co-regulation that happens. It's Narrative therapy can also have rituals. So writing a letter to let go of something that doesn't serve you anymore. And it also pays attention to social constructs. So what is your relationship to the world around you? How do you, like, where did your identity come from? What kind of expectations are on you culturally and societal? and then deepening an alternative story. So what's coming next and giving hope to that individual or that family. Additional opportunities for learning, attunement, empathy, perspective taking. It's very important also to establish boundaries because during assessment and intervention, people can become angry when their story is challenged or they have been through complex trauma. So you need to get an idea of what they don't want brought up, what might not be the time to talk about. So. Clinical application. The therapist doesn't take an expert role in this modality. The goal is to work with an individual or family on telling their story, deconstructing that story, and then reauthoring. We all create meanings and develop our sense of self through our stories our family tells us about us, and that we tell ourselves. So, a skilled therapist is going to walk you through that process with strength-based language, externalization of problems or diagnosis. You are not your trauma, um, assisting a client with reducing judgments, externalization, and mapping. The family will experience creating a collective story and listening to each other's stories. Interventions are the tree of life, as I mentioned. That's a narrative approach that includes cultural values. It's excellent for families as well as children. They can draw the tree. They can, instead of, sometimes it's hard to verbalize what they're going through, but they can draw pictures. They can draw pictures of their family, their experiences. Externalization, name the problem. For instance, anxiety could be given a nickname or choosing an object that represents their problem outside of them. Reauthoring, so the intervention would be to write about your next chapter of life, the invitation to journal, and think about what inspires your family or the individual. The Tree of Life exercise really starts with a discussion about trees, and then the participants will draw a tree with roots, ground, trunk, branches, leaves, and fruit. And each part of the tree represents something different. So roots, your ethnicity, family, ground, who do they spend time with, where do they live, trunk, your talents, skills, branches, goals, dreams, leaves represent relationships to those who have passed away, and the fruit could be who do you want to share, what do you value? What do you want to share? And there's lots of different versions of the tree. Cultural considerations are really great in this type of therapy. Narrative therapy gives a voice to everyone in the room. The interventions like storytelling and creating a tree of life allows for introduction into these conversations that flows naturally. It centers the client, which is an opportunity to celebrate their cultural traditions as well, so they can find healing in their cultural identity. It's an opportunity to recognize the impacts of racism through generational trauma, and it's a social justice lens by decentering the dominant social group because the person in the room is the one in control of their story. This is a video clip in the beginning. They're getting permission to record. Just push it forward a little bit.
So tell me about your experience with what led us here.
So I think about
her life isn't going exactly as planned, and we want her to be healthy and on track.
So Danny, please tell me your experience and how you interpret what led us here.
I definitely don't need to be here, and neither do my parents, and I feel like this is a waste of time.
Okay. What effect does the situation have on you both as parents?
Well, overall, it just makes us kind of anxious all the time. And I'm just so focused on her eating that all I feel is anxiety.
So you're experiencing a lot of anxiety. Danny, what does your parents' own experience have for you?
My parents make me anxious too. I feel like I've become an anxious person because they're constantly following me around. They're counting my calories. They're making sure that I'm okay. And they're just like helicopter parents, and it's making me really anxious.
So it seems as though we have found common ground for everyone here. And that is that all of you are experiencing a lot of anxiety. Do I have that right?
Definitely think we're all feeding off of each other.
Yeah, I also am experiencing anxiety.
So what we can work on now is to help take the anxiety outside. All of you sitting here are not anxious people. You are people who have anxiety. So let's take the anxiety and separate it. We because it is not who you are or you are or you are. It is something that you currently
I never thought about it that way.
So that was a really good example of externalizing the issue and finding commonality within the family. My personal reflection is I love narrative therapy. I use it in my practice already. I currently use a person-centered approach, which aligns with narrative because it is non-directive and collaborative. The stories are powerful because what we tell ourselves becomes our reality, and what we've constructed. So I appreciate the ability to map out someone's story and help them construct a story that feels more beneficial and what they want out of life. In family therapy, each member can have their own interpretation. So I'm really working on discussing values and stories that have been passed down even from generations. And yeah, I use little bits and pieces of this with my clients already, and I think it's an excellent type of therapy to use. Strengths and limitations are listed out here. The strengths are definitely improving self-esteem, understanding that you're not the problem. Studies indicate that narrative therapy significantly reduces depression and the possibility of depression occurring, and a lot of strength-based in this type of therapy. There's tons of strengths. Limitations. In one article, some limitations arise when a parent is unable to co-regulate and scaffold the child's storytelling. So parents that have had a lot of trauma have trouble with like attunement. Skills can be tougher. Family members could react with anger, so it's important to really, um, you know, talk about these things and create these boundaries up front prior to the session. But it can be challenging to reauthor a narrative when a family has a lot of trauma going on. These are my references, and I think I just came under the 12-minute mark, so thank you so much. I really appreciate everything I've learned in this class.